How's it going? And welcome back to some Pokemon Unite. We have the biggest patch that Pokemon Unite has ever dropped. Mew has been added to the game as a really sweet special attacker that will highlight what it does that's so unique at the end of this video. Thea Sky Runes has replaced Remote Stadium as the competitive 5v5 map, changing out Zapdos for Rayquaza, changing out Dreadnought for a rotating cycle of Reggie, changing out Rotom for a Regieleki in the top. All the buffs are in different, the Pokemon spawn everywhere. It's really neat and cool, and I'm excited to dive into it. But in addition to all of that, we also got probably the biggest balance patch Pokemon Unite has ever dropped. We've got changes to some emblems, as you can see here. We've got buffs to Pokemon, we've got nerfs to Pokemon, we got reworks on some Pokemons. Let's dive on into the details and give you some of my thoughts on it at a glance. Before we dive in, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to Unite DB, which is the page I'm looking here. It'll be linked in the video description down below. These folks take the time to farm out the details of a lot of these changes, and while they won't have everything up here immediately because I'm recording this a little bit early, they'll eventually have 100% of the details in here, so shout out to them as always for their tireless work. Emblems. You can now buy extra emblem pages for 1,500 coins or 290 gems. This means they're just being locked to 3 loadouts. You can purchase more of them. This is great. I imagine once I flesh out my emblem collection, I'm probably going to want 10 or more pages depending on what exactly I'm doing, but at a minimum, I want at least 5 or 6 that I've already purchased a couple in my account. Black emblems got the biggest nerf among the emblems. Instead of being 2-4-8 for cooldown reduction, they are now simply 1-2-4, which I think this makes sense. It brings them in line with all of the other emblem modifiers, which are 1-2-4 modifiers for the most part. It'll be interesting to see if this makes black emblems not be ideal. I have a feeling that green plus black is probably still what you want to be doing on most special attackers, but I think only getting 4% cooldown reduction probably opens you up to wanting, say, an attack bonus or a defense bonus on some melee attackers in the game. These other emblem changes here are mostly pointless. They like change numbers in a really small manner, and the flat attack and special attack bonuses are still so incredibly small, you're mostly going to ignore them and just focus on the color bonuses. The crit hit emblem changes are super meaningful here. We're going from 0.6 0.81 to 0.3, 0.5, 0.6. So gold crit hit emblems are now as effective as previously bronze ones, meaning if you have a full page of gold crit emblems, you're only going to get a 6% critical hit increase as opposed to a 10%. I think this, again, is probably a good change, but it's also a pretty sizable one. This change is a big deal, and this is one of the things we don't have all the details on yet, but the buff your character receives for that short while when you get that red glow under you when you unite is now different per character. So previously, all Pokemon got a big movement speed increase, attack speed, cooldown reduction, and a 30% HP shield. Now, every character is going to have different bonuses depending on what type of character it is. And I think this is a sweet change. This will be another tool for them to be able to twist and turn the knobs on when it comes to balancing various characters' unite moves, rather than having blanket bonuses. You know, if you want defenders to be chunkier when they unite, if you want speedsters to be extra mobile, I think this is a net positive for the game overall, but it's also going to be another thing they need to make sure they don't over-tune on certain characters and under-tune on others to really balance out what their unite moves are doing. Buffs for Buzzwole's lesser used move. We got Smackdown getting just bigger damage ratios here, and we've got Leech Life not only getting a higher ratio but also getting its cooldown reduced, which is sweet. Cramorant Air Slash Dive build getting nerfed on its cooldowns on both fronts. I think this is a good change. I think the Dive Air Slash Cramorant build was very reasonable, and I think this will likely make it a little bit more balanced. Notable that Hurricane and Surf did not get touched, and that moveset is still very good. Machamp getting a strict downgrade on Dynamic Punch while getting a interesting side grade on Submission. So you now only run 50% faster as opposed to 70% faster, but the cooldown being dropped by 2 entire seconds is a really big deal. I would expect that overall this is an upgrade to Submission. I'm definitely going to be interested to give that a try. Roll Out Wiggly Got a couple of small changes here. We got an indicator for where rollout's going to bounce, and then double slap got a small cooldown reduction as well as a small damage increase. This is definitely a good change. Double slap was widely accepted as just strictly worse than Dazzling Gleam, and perhaps that will no longer be the case. Stompy Mommy, as Steve likes to call it, got a number of nerfs here. So the cooldown went up half a second, and the ratios on the Queen's Majesty and the base stomp buff went down for both Stomp Plus and the base stomp. Again, this nerf was definitely deserved. Zarina was just an absolute monster in the game, and pulling her stomp down a little bit will hopefully give a little bit more balance among these melee brawlers. Dragonite nerfs to the Hyper Beam build in some interesting ways. So I really like this change. So Hyper Beam's max HP damage was left unchanged when you have the stage 3, so you're fully built up with Dragon Dance, but it was reduced by 5% at stages 0, 1, and 2. So basically, if you have the maximum effect of Hyper Beam built up, it's going to be the same deadly securing beam that it was before, but at every other stage, it's going to be a bit worse at it. And notable here that Dragon Dance is now half a second longer, which means building up to that maximum stack is also going to be a little bit more challenging and less consistent if you don't have enemies around to be hitting. So I think this is a neat way to change this. You still get the same power when you build it up to its maximum potential, but if you're not at the maximum and it's going to be harder to get to that maximum, you do a bit less. They fixed a bug with Icicle Spear where it would hopefully insta-knock out people basically around objectives on Glaceon. They gave a strict damage upgrade to Icy Wind, which is my preferred attack anyways on this character, so excited to try Glaceon with a little bit of extra damage. Delphox's Flame Charge had its cooldown reduced, sure. Espeon, bunch of good changes here. Psybeam and Future Sight both got their cooldowns reduced. Stored Power changed its how quickly it charges back up, and the Unite move on this character drops 12 seconds, so an over 10% increase in how quickly this Unite move recharges. Definitely all strict upgrades here to Espeon. Gonna be interested to kick the tires on that one as well. Duraludon has to wait slightly longer between Dragon Tail uses. It's kind of a strange one to me, but also probably fine. I don't know that Duraludon was really making waves. Speaking of making waves, Soft Boiled has been nerfed here. It heals a bit less. Hopefully that will stunt Blissy's dominance in the competitive metagame a little bit. Mime got a few reworks here. So the boosted attack is on a timer, similar to Blissey and others now, instead of every so many attacks. Light Screen now stuns the thing out where you place it. Fake Out, this looks like it was made slightly worse, no longer stuns after the shove. Barrier, similar to Light Screen, now stuns briefly on placement. And Psychic now pulses energy, dealing damage in an area around itself. Any target affected by Guard Swap, Barriers, or Light Screen. After pulses, the final pulse will stun those for 1 second. Interesting. Guard Swap has been renamed to Power Swap, and it no longer screws with defense. It looks like it increases movement speed and heals you. And if you tag an opponent, it deals damage to them and slows their movement speed. So pretty big change here on Guard Swap. Makes Mime a little bit better of a support character, I think. So be interested to see how this plays out. Is this character now better? We did see Nouns play a little bit of this at Worlds, so wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's something here with these changes. Tyranitar with a number of just strict nerfs here, actually. So Dark Pulse just getting its numbers made worse. Ancient Power getting less movement speed, getting less base damage, getting less ratio. And I think this is probably the most important change to Tyranitar is your attacks when you're in your Unite move no longer critical hit, which means you no longer get these big bursts that suddenly KO people. It's going to be a more steady, predictable stream of damage for both you and the opponents. Crustal, bug fix on Lucario. We got a number of small buffs to held items. I don't know that this changes anything. The out of combat on leftovers is now 5 seconds. The out of combat on all of these is now 5 seconds. The flat bonus that you get from these is slightly more now. I have to imagine Leftovers is probably still unplayable. Assault Vest was an item that saw some play, so maybe this is fine now. I could see that being reasonable. Rocky Helmet gives slightly more defense now, but the passive on it is still pretty mediocre, so I don't really expect this one to change. And Floatstone. This is an item I've been playing on Decidueye just for the little bit of extra base movement speed, and it gives more of that now, which is nice. And the out of combat passive is a little bit quicker on that. And if you were playing it anyways for this and the attack bonus, getting the out of combat more occasionally, more frequently sounds good. A couple other small changes here. Base healing. AOS energy gained from battle reflects your activity rather than winning or losing. Oh, okay. So I think this is the energy tank, so you'll get energy just for playing the game now rather than win or losing, which is good. It'll help people farm energy tank upgrades more. But overall, the balance changes in here seem like they all make a lot of sense. I'm glad to see a number of buffs to lesser played characters and skill sets in addition to nerfs in key spots. I think the emblem changes make sense here, even if these middle ones don't really impact anything. At any rate, Mew was added to the game, and keep an eye here for not only for some Pokemon Unite streams, but also some Mew gameplay highlights here coming up soon. But let's check out its skill set really quick in the practice tool and show off not only how it has 3 attacks on each of its slots, but also how it can relearn attacks over the course of the match in a way that's really sweet. Thanks for watching as always, folks. Enjoy. Alright, so Mew's got some interesting things going on. First up, instead of having attack upgrades, you just have 3 different attacks on each of your buttons. So let's start with Surf here, which pushes people around. Your second attack, let's give ourselves some levels here. In the practice mode, you get at level 3. You have a dash here with agility, which has a cooldown. Push people around and dash. So that's kind of fun is you can dash past people and then surf back into them. Let's turn off move cooldowns for a second. Highlight that. So you can go, all right, I'm going to dash past you and then surf you back. Sounds like a ton of fun as someone who's always loved pushing people around with Blastoise. But probably the most unique thing about Mew's kit is when you hit level 5, surf this bud, you get the option to relearn your attack. So I push in the L3 and I can swap to Electro Ball and Light Screen now, for example. So Light Screen puts that up. It's a barrier similar to mine. Oh, whoa. I didn't realize you could pull it back in constantly. That's sick. And again, I can just go ahead and hit this. And now I have Solar Beam and Coaching. So we can get a blast off here, just like Venusaur Solar Beam. Coaching won't have any effect here inside of this game mode because, what's the word I'm searching for? Because I obviously don't have a teammate to coach, but we get to go ahead and use Solar Beam with Agility. It's really kind of interesting. So Solar Beam on Venusaur isn't super common because you have to give up Pedal Dance to take it, so you don't have any mobility. But with this character, because Solar Beam is on the opposite of your agility, you can actually have both of them. Let's go ahead and hit the Unite move. Is learned at level 8, and it's kind of neat. So it makes you float, creating a field and becoming invincible. The user and ally Pokemon in the area have stealth, and then it pops off at the end to give you some damage. So people don't see you when you're in here, and then it does a bit of damage at the end, and you're invulnerable that entire time. So it's kind of a get out attack, I guess, but either way, this character's kit is sweet. I'm looking forward to playing a bunch with it. As far as items go, I think I'm going to start here. This is a special attacker, so a little bit of cooldown reduction, but you're also auto-attacking a bit, so I think I want Muscle Band as well. And then I don't normally play focus on attacker-based characters, but I think because this character has Surf as an option, the ability to have a little bit more durability is probably a good thing since you're going to be up in people's business on occasion. But I'd like to know what you're doing in the comments down below. Appreciate you watching it. We'll have a number of Mew highlights here over the next couple of days. The design on this character is very sweet, to say the least. Enjoy, folks. Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Remember, if you enjoyed it, tap that like button, leave a comment down below with what your favorite part was, and share it with a friend. I'll be back tomorrow morning with another Pokemon Unite highlight here on YouTube. Hopefully see you again then.